Joseph and Jamie waited until spring, when everyone travelled further south for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. They'd be able to go and visit Mary without attracting any more gossip. They were all set to go to Hebron, where Zechariah and Elizabeth lived, early the day after the feast, when they found a message had been slid under the door from Zechariah and Elizabeth. The beautifully written invitation said, "Come and celebrate with us the safe arrival of our baby son." Wait, what? Baby? An actual baby? Elizabeth was, well, I don't mean to be rude, but she wasn't young. She would have collected her free bus pass by now in any modern city that treats its older residents with that kind of respect. And anyway, hadn't Mary said the couple had never been able to have children? They stared at each other open-mouthed, and then everyone kept grabbing the invitation off everyone else, even Dinah and Miriam, who'd never been taught to read. But there it was, born after sunset on Nisan 14th, weighing 6 minus 12 shekels, mother and baby both doing well. That settled it. Dinah had felt strongly it would be best if Joseph went to see Mary alone, give them a chance to talk. But Elizabeth had had a baby? Everyone started piling into sandals, shawls and cloaks, and there was no more talk of discretion. Mathon borrowed a neighbour's cart so they could be as speedy as possible, and they were off. Part way to Hebron, they overtook some of Mary's family, run-walking and walk-running along the dusty road, nearly falling over each other in their haste. "Elizabeth!" wheezed Eli. "We know!" shouted Joseph, hauling them aboard without even stopping. As Jamie watched everyone's keenness to see this wonder, a fantastic thought occurred to him. "This is why Mary came," he yelled in triumph. "God must have put it in her head. She guessed it somehow, and she rushed to be with Elizabeth just like we are now." Everyone was amazed at the idea. Could God have hinted it to her somehow? "I don't know about God," mused Eli. "Perhaps Elizabeth sent her a message." "No, because then Mary could have told us why. The messenger would be proof," explained Jamie, beaming. "But if it was just a feeling, nobody would believe her. That's why she didn't say anything." "Yes, but God," said Eli, clearly struggling with the idea of the Almighty being in touch with his youngest daughter. "Why not?" said Miriam. "Very odd things are happening. I think Jamie is right." Could Jamie believe his ears? He wondered how long it would take him to learn to write properly, so he could teach her, so she could write, "I think Jamie is right," across a huge piece of parchment that he could stick on his wall. But more importantly, his beloved Mary had done something noble and kind, just as Jamie had always believed, so everyone would have to think well of her again. They arrived at Elizabeth and Zechariah's house and fell out of the cart on top of each other, leaving the horse to wander round the side and park itself. Their urgent hammering prompted a quick reply as Rabbi Reuben, Elizabeth's neighbour, flung the door open. "Well, isn't this a turn-up?" he exclaimed, without bothering with the customary greetings of peace being upon whoever. Come in." He rattled through the social niceties, pointing here and there like a demented airline attendant's pre-flight safety routine. Cloaks there, drinks there, basin to wash your feet, basin to wash your hands, and there's the baby. And there indeed he was, a tiny miracle in human form, snoozing on his mother's knee. "Welcome," said Elizabeth, the calmest person there. She beamed up at them, but Zechariah, seated next to her with his arm around them both, couldn't take his eyes from his little son, less than 3 days old. Jamie and the newcomers gazed speechless for some time, and the celebrating neighbours who were already there joined them to gaze again, as if the wonder was so much it needed to be redone at regular intervals. "How?" Dinah asked, finally managing to speak. "The usual way," smiled Elizabeth. "We are so happy for you," gushed Eli, then paused, worrying in case Zechariah being dumb meant that he also couldn't hear. "Happy!" he bellowed, and pulled a grotesque grin. "About the baby!" He did a manic rockabye motion, rocking an imaginary baby so hard it would have made a real infant puke. "Honestly," muttered Miriam, to no one in particular, "he's dumb, not stupid." "Congratulations!" Eli carried on, doing a little happy dance. He translated it into Hebrew with added jazz hands in case that might help. "Mazel tov!" Zechariah nodded, smiling, to reassure Eli that although he couldn't speak, there was nothing wrong with his ears or brain. Elizabeth saw that the baby was stirring, not surprising given the racket, and propped him up, moving the wrapping cloths away from his face. "Look, chicken, here's some of your cousins and friends come to see you." The baby wrinkled his nose and yawned, his eyes kind of pointing in Jamie's direction and kind of not. Jamie wasn't sure if such a young babe could focus, but he went closer anyway. "Hello," he said, putting his finger into the fierce grip of that tiny fist and hoping that this smallest and newest of Mary's relatives might see him and know that he wanted to be friends. Mary. Jamie suddenly remembered the thing that had filled his mind before this wonder had driven it to the back. He looked at his father and saw that Joseph's eyes were roaming around, hoping Mary would come to greet them from a side room. Elizabeth noticed too, and her face clouded with a hint of concern. She realized that Jamie had picked up on it and was staring at her, worried. Elizabeth's smile came back, warm and reassuring, and she offered the baby to Jamie. "Would you like to hold him?" Jamie was thrilled, sitting next to her so that there would be no danger of dropping him, and Elizabeth slid the long-awaited child onto his lap. "Good practice," she murmured to Zechariah, who laughed a silent laugh. Jamie had never known anything like it, to have such a tiny being lie completely trusting in his arms. Miriam sat next to him, equally fascinated, and they took turns to cuddle this living bundle of love. When the community staring had reached a natural lull, Eli cleared his throat, preparing to speak with his least concerned and really not worried at all voice. "And, Mary, where is she hiding away?" He gave a natural, easy smile with his mouth and a piercing gaze at Elizabeth with his eyes. Joseph's eyes were the same, though he didn't bother with the smile. "Mary, sweet girl, yes, she was here," said Rabbi Reuben. "Is she connected to you?" "She's my daughter," said Eli, not taking his eyes from Elizabeth. "So kind of her to travel to support Elizabeth through this time," continued Reuben, not picking up on what was really happening. "Yes," said Eli, "she's very kind." Elizabeth squeezed Jamie's hand, putting every ounce of reassurance she could into her reply. "She set off home for Nazareth after this little one was born. You'll see her there when you get back." Jamie saw the look on his father's face. Joseph had got past the point of thinking he'd ever see Mary again. "You'll be able to talk to her," continued Elizabeth. "Really talk." "Of course," said Eli cheerily, snapping into what must have been Plan R by now in all his excuses for his daughter's odd behaviour. "I should have known. My youngest is ill, young Clop," he explained to the neighbours. "My poor wife has been run ragged looking after him. How like Mary to go straight home to help as soon as Elizabeth could spare her." "You must stay with us for the rest of the feast, Eli," said Elizabeth. "We'll have the baby's naming ceremony at the end of the festival. Then you can go back after that." "Thank you," said Eli. "Why not? We can catch up with Mary soon enough." There was an awkward silence, awkward enough for those not close to the story to start to notice if someone didn't break it soon. Dinah swooped into the baby, scooping him up. "May I? Oh, what an absolute darling!" She took him over to the open shutters as if to look at him properly, cooing over him, and all the neighbours and Eli's family followed in raptures again. "You too, Joseph," said Elizabeth quietly, now they were far enough away. "Stay with us. Mary came here to rest and prepare. Let us offer you the same shelter." Jamie and Miriam watched Joseph, wondering if he would accept the offer of hospitality, but also the implied hope. Joseph shrugged, staring at the floor. "Prepare for what?" Zechariah had tears in his eyes, unable to say anything and therefore unable to give any comfort. Elizabeth's expression showed as much pain for Joseph and almost as much difficulty in finding the words. "What's coming?" "God's plan for you, both of you, Joseph, together." Joseph shook his head. "Mary loves you," ventured Jamie, unusually timid, and Miriam nodded eagerly. Joseph didn't even try to respond anymore. He wandered out to the elderly couple's patch of land, strolling, standing, staring, breathing in the peace of the place. He spent a lot of time like that over the next few days, after Miriam and her parents went home to Jerusalem, and it did seem to do him some good. Jamie passed the week enjoyably, helping Elizabeth, learning how to look after the baby, and trying to solve the mystery of Mary. Elizabeth was cautious of saying much, but he did get a bit further with his investigations. "She went before you all got here, because she needs to spend time with her mother," said Elizabeth, as she showed him how to roll out pastry to make sweet treats for the naming ceremony. "Quality time, while just the two of them are there." "And Klopp," said Jamie, struggling to get pastry out of his hair. "I don't think he'll be much help, but hopefully he won't get in the way. They need to talk, that's all. Here, use a cloth, sweetheart." Jamie looked at her as he de-glooped himself, not intending to change the subject till she said more. "It's not my story to tell," was all he got, so he had to be content with that.